Blessed love and peace. There is an additional joint I'm supposed to share. Start to have some food. Almost started to relax. Just do it. And otherwise. Blessing for our food here is already recited, so we're continuing on. Actually, basically two things. One additional thing, and then some additional things to share about something I already mentioned. Come on, Bailinga. All right. Islam, with all peace and blessings, with all due respect, something for consideration is this. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu withholds much from the Ummah because the Ummah is not ready for everything. And that's something that is beneficial to recognize, for the Ummah to recognize, particularly when going out to recruit converts, reverts, and such. Two huge examples of this are slavery, which is permitted, which is recognized as haram, but permitted, and consumption of animals, which is permitted, but essentially haram. And that's huge, up in arms type of debates. But it's actual. We know what compassion is. We know animals experience pain. We know we can live without causing that type of pain to animals. We know there are strict rules about the processes of causing that pain because of that. And yet, it continues on. Particularly because there's recognition that many kinfolk are not ready for that, particularly during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's part of the pragmatics of religion, but at the same time, it's something that wherein there is the need for ongoing reconciliation. So, point basically is that there are things that are shared and there are things that are withheld for those who have ears to hear, as Jesus says in the Gospels. And particularly apply that towards what I articulate concerning citizenship and recognizing that a true believer and practitioner of Islam is precluded from being a citizen, particularly of a democracy or within a democracy or a so-called democracy, whose mandate is explicitly and woefully haram. So that's one of the things. We're going to get some garlic. And some curry powder. All right. So that's the one thing. Now, the second thing, this is all related to, by the way, when I talk about St. Paul, peace and blessings be with him, and Islam and otherwise, it's all related because it's all the same guidance. It's all the same teachings of truth and guidance of truth and imploring of truth, even compelling and commandment of truth. So, going back to St. Paul, peace and blessings be with him. Here's some further um, articulations to give some further rationale, some reasoning behind what I talk about concerning, or what we share concerning St. Paul. To recognize, first of all, to call somebody the devil, Jesus himself says that to Peter, to St. Peter. When St. Peter is trying to like, yo, ain't nobody going to touch you, I got your back. And Jesus says, get behind me, devil. Does he not? Was that hyperbole? You think Jesus was just trying to like sober Peter up at that moment? Get behind me, devil. He called Peter devil, his own ace boom coom #1 disciple, devil. To show, I'm just saying that's to show, me articulating that is to show that the significant differentiation between the heavenly and the earthly, and how even the most earnest and well-meaning apostle, because of that apostle's attachment to the earthly, the consciousness that is devoted and entrenched within the heavenly, calls that most devoted apostle and student devil because of the attachment to the earthly. It's not hatred. It's not condemnation or vilification. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. But still recognizing the attachment to the earthly, and kinfolk wasn't ready for it at that time. So when I mentioned like Paul being possessed by the devil, being enslaved by the devil, it's not a condemnation, it's not hatred. Jesus calls Peter devil. It's just a matter of articulating what the actuality is. So that's one thing, to put it in context, to temper the perceived vilification or whatever else from what I articulate a few hours ago now. The other thing is also looking at the evidence, and it takes a lot to kind of have some of this perspective. It takes a lot to have the knowledge, but then after having the knowledge, to have this kind of like distance of just blind or automatic allegiance, an unquestioning allegiance. That's another thing. So from that was what we share right now. Recognize again, plain as day, plain facts. Paul never meets Jesus in this life, in this earthly life. That's facts according to the gospel. During the earthly life and trodden ministry, as it is known in the gospel and as it is conveyed in the gospels of Jesus, Paul is persecuting Jesus. Paul is persecuting those who follow Jesus. Paul is not his apostle in this life until after the resurrection. That's huge. So when we talk about experiential learning, what did you talk about with Jesus? How did he do this? How did he do that? Paul does not have that knowledge. Paul does not have that experience. The other apostles do. Paul has a huge amount of knowledge about the traditional teachings that has a lot of weight that the other apostles don't do, which is how Paul, or is one of the ways of how Paul is able to have authority and speak authoritatively amongst the apostles without having ever walked with Jesus, but knows the teachings that Jesus is referencing in Jesus's ministry. So knowledge of truth is knowledge of truth. And if he ain't against us, then he's with us, as Jesus says. So at the same time, that can sway what the apostles know experientially, but not know knowledgeably in terms of traditionally, and thus be exposed, vulnerable, or whatever to whatever other influences and otherwise, or biases that Paul may have in sharing what he does. To expect perfection from the apostles seems rather illogical when the apostles We're very distant from perfect during the life of Jesus, when having Jesus right there. How often did the apostles trip? Who's the greatest? Um, and such and such. So even when the apostles are with Jesus, the apostles are prone to subjectivity, for lack of a better word. I won't say error or whatever, but to stray from the path, even when Jesus is there. So what is there that suggests, or what is there that even explicitly articulates the infallibility of the apostles after Jesus is resurrected? That could be a matter of faith, that could be a matter of doctrine, but there seems to be the substantiation of that within at least the Acts of the Apostles. So um, it's just putting things in context as well, and recognizing how things can be influenced otherwise. Not even listening to anything outside of the Gospels or anything outside of the Bible, but just based upon what is articulated within the Bible, within the Gospels. That's what we share at this moment. Guerrilla mode style with Panda Bear influences. All love, all natural. Oh, the other thing to share is that when we talk about the guidance, what we're taught, what we're supposed to be doing, the Sunnah, and additionally, to recognize that it all just guides us back to the experience of garden. All the teachings of righteousness, fairness, all the details, all the mitzvot, and additionally, just like Shabbat, simply guides us back to the experience of the garden. What it is to live in the garden, to be at peace in the garden, to remember experience in the garden, that primordial, natural, ancient experience of garden that we all experience in one way or another way long ago through the path of creation. That's what the guidance is towards, is to remember what garden is, what that life is, to eating the vegetables, eating the fruits, being at peace with the animals, not having fear, just being at harmony and peace. It's not it's not a dream, it's not an impossibility, it's not some pipe dream. It's not a idealistic utopia. It's who we are. It's who we strive to be again in this life. And that's what the teachings guide us into, back into, is living in garden. All this civilization and technology and everything else like that provides a lot of advantages in competing with each other and enslaving each other. Nature is nature. It's not to be controlled. It's not to be owned. It's not any living being's dominion. It requires humbleness, fairness, honesty, compassion, respect, honor, gratitude. That's what it all guides us to. Islam, Israel, Jesus, Buddha, Hindu, Vedas, Tao, Wankantanka, Baha'i. It all guides us into garden again. Part of the challenge of that is to experience that from civilization, after being immersed in civilization, involved with civilization. It requires piety. It requires letting go of the advantages that we have, whether it's money, whether it's weapons, politics, celebrity, whatever it is, letting those advantages go. Still living and functioning within the world, but letting go of the things, the holdings that we have over others, and being vulnerable to the aggressions, to the hostilities. to the condemnations and persecutions, and additionally, for the sake of our enhanced relationship with the trees and the rivers and the sky, earth, sun, moon, our relatives, nativity. Be vulnerable like the trees that line the boulevards. At any moment, the mayor's administration can make a decision, or otherwise, about landscaping, about making way for new wires or roadways or whatever else. But in the meanwhile, our roots are within the soil and are connected with the entire earth, with all the other trees and all the other rivers and all the other mountains that are on this planet that is traveling through the universe, visiting with the stars and the dust. That is who we are, and that's who we strive to be. And that's what the teachings guide us to. And with that, we're going to say all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace. Rastafari, all our relations.